Welcome to the Easy Speak Speakeasy.
You've unlocked the door to unfiltered mental health and wellness conversations.
Here we are again at the Speakeasy.
At the Speakeasy.
Okay, so today...
We don't know the song yet.
No.
We're trying to create a song.
Oh, yeah. Oh, were we trying to do the song?
No, I don't know. I was just saying that wasn't it.
No, it definitely wasn't. It was like, at the Speakeasy. You took me out with that. I'm sorry. I tried. Your face. We gotta zoom in at that exact moment, please.
It was like I just took a
I took a
sip of
Coke
of this drink I'm about to stir up.
Yes, perfect segue.
Perfect segue.
All right, we've got some lemon vodka,
lemon
and ginger juice seltzer water from.
This is one of my faves. Seltzer.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Easy Speak Speakeasy, where we make drinks and spill drinks. By the way, one of our first taglines ever was where we spill drinks.
Critical partnerships where we spill drinks.
Because every single time we would try to get any work done, we would spill a drink.
Yep. Oftentimes, this would be happening at a bar, because that's where we oftentimes like to work. Because we were working at the beginning after full work days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like,
Listen, our schedule.
It was like, yes, please. We were building this business while we were also working like multiple other full-time jobs and being moms. So.
I think the only people who really understand how hard we were working at that time are our children and our moms.
Yes.
Because our moms were like, do you guys remember what sleep is?
Yeah.
And we were like, I can't hear you over my espresso machine.
Yeah.
And our kids were like, are you going to tuck us in for bed?
I'm like, yeah, for 2
minutes. We'd be like, yes, honey, hold on a second. And then we'd both be like, bedtime. When will we be back on?
Yeah.
And we would like pick a time that we were going to hop back on and beat each other, because we were working virtually, because obviously we were raising our kids.
Yep.
And we
were working virtually before working virtually was a thing.
Yes.
Duh.
Trendsetters.
Where we spill drinks!
Wow. That was beautiful.
Perfect timing.
Beautiful fountain of wasted alcohol.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hopefully that was mostly seltzer.
Doubt it. Not the way I pour.
Oh yeah, that's good. I'll drink to that.
Yeah. That's what the cups say. I'll drink to that.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
So today we've got a hot topic to discuss.
Yes. Our episode name is Baby Blues in Black History Month.
Yes.
February is coming in hot.
Yes.
Last episode, we talked about the steaminess of love and liquor.
Yes.
It wasn't that steamy.
I know.
When I say it like that, it makes it sound like you're going to go back.
I was trying to get steamy, but then
I was like,
you were like, turn up the AC.
I was like, literally, why are you wearing all pink? I'm wearing all black.
So today we're going to talk about this mother from Duxbury here in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let you, I feel like you have a pretty good grasp on like the story and how it happened.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say about it as well. But
Well, I've been doing a little research.
She pulls out her book. Look at this. Her research book.
I wish I had a pair of spectacles right now to put on.
I love that notebook, by the way. It's cute.
Thank you. I just got this from my friend in California who sent me a box of little things.
Oh, cute.
She be sending me things.
I love that.
So let's first, I think, start with this mom.
Yeah.
And then I think we have a bunch of things that'll spin out of it.
Yeah.
So I think with full disclosure, we should say that this particular podcast is pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about today is factual as of the 13th of February.
Perfect.
So there's a mom here that's from Duxbury, Massachusetts, which is a pretty affluent area, beach town here in Massachusetts. And she was diagnosed with postpartum depression. And unfortunately, while in the midst of treatment for that, was home with her children, not alone. Her husband and father of their 3 children was working from home as she was undergoing treatment. And this particular day, had asked him if he could run out, go to CVS, pick up a prescription, grab some takeout for dinner, and come back home, and they would proceed on with their night. And in the time that he was gone, which was about 25 minutes, she suffered through what is being stated by her attorneys as a psychosis, I think is
psychosis, yeah.
A psychosis episode related to her postpartum depression, in which she said that she heard a voice tell her that she needed to kill her kids and herself, and that it was her last chance. And so she proceeded to do that. I don't think we need to go through the graphics.
Yeah.
But when the dad returned, he found 2 of the kids no longer living, one of them still struggling, and the mom had attempted suicide but was still alive. Since that time, the 3rd child has passed away, and the mom has been now arraigned and charged with 3 counts of murder.
Oof.
And
She's still hospitalized, or
she is, to the best of my knowledge, I'll say based on this research that I have, I believe she is still hospitalized, but I did hear a rumor, which is just a rumor, that she was home on a bracelet. Oh. But in this article, it actually says that she actually jumped out of a window after self-harming herself pretty significantly. And it says that when she jumped from the window, she broke her spine. So I don't know that she would be home already.
Yeah, probably not.
But I don't have anything that says that she is definitely home.
Yeah.
I know that she's not in jail.
Yeah.
But that she has definitely been charged.
Yikes.
So it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of information around this case. And when I say case, I mean a case of a mother struggling with postpartum, not case in the sense of legal, because that's not really the way that I personally view this. But I think before we talk about this anymore, that we should just talk about, before moving forward, some ways if this strikes anybody and gets them upset of what they should do while listening or watching online.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a very heavy topic. You know, I'm finding myself, as you're describing it, just like going through a myriad of emotions, you know. And so, I mean, I think the best thing is, if you're listening or you're watching and you're feeling like you need to take a break or take a pause, like, do that. Just feel empowered to, you know, consume as much of this information as you can, you know, based on how you're feeling and what you're thinking, you know. But it's definitely given us an opportunity, you know, I would say, to talk a little bit more in depth about something that actually, even though this is something that has made national news and that is kind of getting daily attention here in Massachusetts, and it seems like a very odd and shocking thing, which it is, and also it's not something that's like doesn't happen, right? Like it's pretty common that women, one, experience postpartum depression, right? And you know, it's a very natural thing to happen after somebody literally grows another human being from scratch, you know, and like has their hormones and emotions kind of doing a ping pong ball back and forth. And then, you know, there's also the stigma that's attached to postpartum or any kind of depression, especially for somebody who's living what, from an outside perspective, looks like a pretty good life, right? Like, she had a really great job at a top hospital in Boston. Like you said, they lived in an affluent neighborhood. And so typically, you know, what I hear from a lot of women is that they feel like they can't be depressed, or they can't show their depression, because when you have a baby, that's supposed to be like one of the happiest times of your life, you know? And while that may be true, it's also one of the most tumultuous times of your life. And from almost every angle, from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, your life just gets flipped upside down when you have a child. And so, you know, I think it's giving us the opportunity to kind of have that conversation out in the open. I think we take for granted, because it happens every day that people give birth and have babies, that it's a major thing. And, you know, depression is one of those things that does not discriminate. You know, anybody can get depressed and feel depressed regardless of their situation. And when depression gets bad enough, it does get into the realm of an altered reality, right, that people find themselves living in. And sometimes that includes hallucinations and delusions, which can both be a part of a episode of psychosis, which sounds like this mom had a pretty like salient episode. It also sounds like she had a very like significant history since having this baby, significant mental health history of like seeking help and support and resources. So this is someone who had resources available to them and was actively receiving treatment, and this was still the outcome. Right. Which I think is important to kind of point out, because mental health can be rough.
It can be really hard to navigate, to even know where to start, or even if you have the resources available to you, the stigma of accessing them can stand in the way.
Right.
But this article talks about that she, even prior to the birth of the youngest child, who was 4 months old, that she had been talking about or seeking out, I should say, help for her depression, and that she had been prescribed 13 different psychiatric medications in a 4-month period.
That is wild to me. I'm sorry. I'm just, within 4 months, I as a prescriber myself, that sounds wild. And like, you know, with mental health, it's kind of like the wild, wild west with medicine sometimes, because, you know, it is trial and error, right? And people have different reactions, and you got to try different things. But 13 in a 4-month period seems like a lot. Like, you shouldn't be trying more than one medicine at a time most of the time, right? Maybe 2. But, you know, so now I'm just trying to do the math of like, how long was she on certain things before she was switched? Or, you know, it just feels like what was happening for this woman internally on a chemical level was just chaotic. And, and like, we have to acknowledge that as part of what the manifestation was of her mental health challenge, because these medicines aren't a magic pill. They're little tiny capsules of chemicals that go into our body and change a whole lot. So that's just really crazy to me to hear that. That's wild.
And it says in here that the 4 months preceding this incident that occurred, there were 13 medications that were an assortment of benzotropines, antidepressants, mood stabilizers, and Ambien. So I don't know if you want to give sort of like a 2-second synopsis of what sort of categories those different types of medications are.
Yeah. So she's got the mood stabilizers, which are for folks who are having a difficult time regulating their moods. It's just like what it sounds like, right? You know, you're happy one second, you're sad the next, and so those meds are to help the pendulum swing a little bit less extremely. And then the benzos are, as we call them, are typically used for people who have high levels of anxiety. They help to kind of dampen down that alarm system in our body that contributes to feeling anxiety. And so, you know, a lot of people prescribe those for anxiety. They're very controversial in the medical field in terms of when they're used and how they're used and how long people are using them for, because they do have some addictive properties to them. And then Ambien, that is probably to help her sleep. That's a sleep medication. So
and then antidepressants.
So yeah.
But you know, it also says in here that prior to this, she had a 5-day inpatient psychiatric stay. So some of this rapid medication could have been part of that inpatient stay. That's one of the things that happens, you know, that I have definitely experienced through, you know, my journey with my son is we, you know, try to get kids or adults in and out of a psychiatric stay from medication management quickly because you're able to have access to a psychiatrist that's watching what's happening, you know, around the clock.
Yeah, but 5
and you're
days.
seeing somebody daily, right?
It's like, how much could you really do in 5 days?
Well,
with
that's true.
med changes?
I mean, well, they can pull people down off of meds pretty quick.
Yes.
So that could be one thing, and then weaning people.
But then adding
around.
It's just 5 days is short.
It is pretty short. But I mean, you know, this is part of the challenge of our mental health system. Is, you know, it's like
get people in and out.
And we really need to think about the like longer needs of folks.
Yeah. Wow, I can't.
So, you know, I think one of the things that is also really interesting is that the husband and father has come out publicly and has asked for compassion for his wife and the mother of his children, and has talked about that she was a great mother to their 3 children, and that she was seeking help and support for what was happening, and that the 2 other children, I believe, were 3 and 5, and that there had never been any type of like flag that came up from anywhere about her care of the children or her love for them. He talked about that earlier that day. She was building snowmen with them outside and sending pictures of them doing that. And so I think this is, you know, what mental health challenges look like, right? And I think one of the things about our society is that mental health challenges often get painted to look like an aggressive person who can't even like string a sentence along together, and they're dirty, and they are, you know, like all
homeless,
of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And the reality is that most times that doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, of course it does. You know, if somebody's mental health has deteriorated to that point and they have not been able to access services, but most people start from a place in life where they have some sort of access to things.
Right.
And it's the barriers a lot of times that, you know, ping pong people through like what their outcome is going to end up being.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, something that was really interesting to me when I was pulling up this article was, you know, you always look, whenever you have an article, you pull something up. And I wanted to, there was a woman here in Brockton. So we're recording here in Brockton, Massachusetts, which is this term that I hate with fiery hatred of a minority majority city.
Yeah. Yeah. It just means that
whatever that means.
It just means
white people of America that don't want to say the majority of people are people of color.
Oh my god.
It's just the majority are black people or people of color.
Literally.
They're not a minority anymore if they're the majority. What in the oxymoron
I know
is going on? Emphasize on moron.
Yeah, it's just people trying to feel better about themselves, really, unfortunately.
A certain type of person.
Yeah.
With a certain kind of pigmentation.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So yesterday, you and I happened to be at an event, and we were talking about that we were going to have this conversation on the podcast today.
Yeah.
And whoa, baby.
That blew up.
Did we set off
Oh my God.
a fiery conversation that I don't think either one of us expected.
No, I expected everyone to have the same opinions as us.
I
because
know.
There were people we love and that we're hanging out with.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that just goes to show you,
But
obviously.
Yeah.
No.
They were like, what's wrong with the two of you? And we were like,
what's wrong with you?
we were like, where's our swords and shields? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. It's so funny because, I mean, it was, I think part of what this case brings up is that, like, and I think it was a heavy topic in our conversation, was this, like, cross and intersectionality between mental health and the prison system and criminal justice and what's right and what's wrong, and how do we see that within the guise or context of mental health, and like what's the line between mental health versus like you're a criminal and you've done something horrific, and people were making really good points that I hadn't considered, like
and like who decides what's right and wrong?
Who decides?
Like, and why do they decide? Why do they have that power or authority?
Right.
And it was a very heated, interesting conversation with viewpoints from across
I
think the spectrum. So one of the folks that was in the conversation had mentioned this mother that was in the Brockton area, this minority majority city that was sentenced for killing her children when she was going through postpartum or like mentally having a crisis situation. And so I decided to Google it and see what came up. And so it clearly talks about the fact that she, had mental health challenges. She had 2 sons. She killed her 2 sons in the midst of what was clearly some sort of a mental health crisis situation. The reason that the boys were even found was because after she was outside, sort of out there just talking like in a way that people couldn't make sense of what she was talking about. She was being aggressive towards neighbors and people who she had never been that way towards. And so people were concerned about her. And that was how they ended up even discovering her sons and what had happened. And so she went through the criminal justice system. It talks very little about her mental health concerns and needs, and just it talks about her family saying that they knew that she had mental health needs, but other than that, the story is very much embedded in a legal sort of vantage point. And that she was sentenced for 2 counts of first-degree murder for these 2 boys. And I knew that this is what I was going to find,
Yeah.
but here is what was striking to me. There were 3 headlines. So there was the first headline of this mom in Duxbury that we talked about, which reads, "Troubled mother faces murder charges in her young children's death." And then the second mother is, "Brockton mother gets life sentence for ritualistic killings of her sons." And then at the bottom of this one from Brockton, it says, "A tragic case of domestic violence. Andover man fatally shoots his wife and son before taking his own life." Andover being another predominantly white, affluent area.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to me, the headlines.
The difference in tone is...
The tone, the language of these 3 different...
Yeah.
Obviously mental health related acts that had happened, right? These 2 that are from the predominantly white
steeped
neighborhoods, in compassion,
empathy.
We're talking about tragedy, troubled, her young children's deaths, right? In the one with the mom that was from the Brockton area, it's Brockton mother gets life sentence for ritualistic killings. Right? Like the whole thing is completely different. Even the font.
Interesting.
The font in the article from Brockton is big, black, bold font.
Yeah.
The font from the Andover case is like a smaller, still bold, but like smaller font. And the one from the woman in Duxbury is like in italics.
Oh, stop it.
Like font.
Stop it, I can't.
And it's just like,
it all makes a
these
difference.
are all the same.
Yeah.
Y'all.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah. Wow.
It was startling to me.
That's wild.
When I pulled that up.
Yeah.
And so when people often say to us, it doesn't have anything to do with their race or the fact that they don't speak English or.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I should laminate these and carry them around with me.
Yeah, literally.
To be like, this
a little
is you.
flip chart and be like, what's the difference? Can you tell me what's different here? Like we do with kids. Like which one doesn't match? It's like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Having that conversation is really tough because it's, and I think it's well within the vein of like mental health. Like it's just very hard to pin down. It's very hard to like have a very like concrete definition, like even within the mental health field, like providers, like we are often struggling with like, what are the things we're looking for that lets us know for sure that this is the thing that we're dealing with, right? Like within that woman's journey, she had 13 different medication changes, and it's because mental health is so steeped in nuance that even, scientists haven't figured out the exact formula for treating it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like, cancer or like any other physical ailment that we might experience where we can get a CAT scan or a blood test done, right? Mental health is steeped within the nuance of our experiences, from like a cellular level all the way up through like a social level. And then also on top of that, there's like the things that we're interfacing with, our life context, right? And so it's like trying to treat mental health challenges is challenging, from a provider perspective, but then also from a perspective of society having an underlying understanding that would provoke across the board level of compassion or understanding, right? Like one of the things that came up yesterday was, does this mom deserve to go to jail, right? And you and I were like, no, like it's a mental health challenge. Like she needs treatment, right? She needs help and support. Like, I can't even imagine living with myself as a mother after doing something like that, right? Like, I just know that her life must be like, it's punishment enough to know that you did what you did to your kids, even if you were under the influence of a psychotic episode, right? But then, like, you know, the differing opinion was she did a really horrible thing, unspeakable, unfathomable, right, to her children. She deserves to have the consequences of going to jail, you know? And when we try to unpack that, you know, the response that we were getting was essentially, you know, who's going to pay, you know, like, always comes down to the money. Who's going to pay for her intensive mental health treatment and reform, you know, to which I'm like, I guess taxpayers, right? And it's like, what's the difference between that and jail? And like, you know, and like, is there a chance of rehabilitation, you know, when your brain and your actions go so far, you know? And these, I think, are fair questions to ask, and also part of why we haven't really gotten it right in this country, I think, as it relates to that division between mental health treatment and jail. Like, it's just, or prison, it's very synonymous for a lot of people. You know, a lot of people who need mental health treatment just end up in the criminal justice system for whatever reason, right? And so, yeah, that was a very interesting conversation. Definitely thought-provoking, and made me think to myself, like, you know, is me identifying as a mother, being a woman who has an abundance of empathy, like, does that automatically mean I have the correct stance on this particular topic, right? Like, you know, it made me think, you know, it's very interesting. Okay, I think you need to take a couple sips because you have not touched your drink.
Thank you for making sure that I'm on the right path.
Yeah, you're welcome. Here for you. You know that girl. Okay, so it's also Black History Month, and so
Whoop.
We wanted to take some time to also recognize and honor some really amazing mental health pioneers who are also Black and have done amazing things. We know that mental health in the Black community, in, you know, across cultural lines, really is pretty highly stigmatized for lots of different reasons, and there's also interplays of intergenerational trauma, and because of all of that, and folks just feeling not comfortable accessing supports and services, one, because a lot of times the supports and services that are available aren't a true reflection of who they are, right? So it doesn't fit what they're looking for or what they need. But then also, you know, it's just really difficult sometimes to access mental health services. And so I am highlighting BB Moore Campbell. I should probably look up her name so I say it correctly. However, this woman is amazing. She's a powerhouse. She was really a pioneer in mental health that was focused on that stigma piece. Like, she knew how salient it was in the Black community, and set out to really, BB Moore Campbell. Yes, I said it correctly. BB Moore Campbell. She set out to essentially make sure that, like, stigma in the Black community was decreased. So she did that in lots of different ways. She founded NAMI, which is the National Alliance Against Mental Illness, in Inglewood, California, in a predominantly Black neighborhood, to create space for Black people to talk about mental health concerns, which is huge, right? And so she did a lot of this, and so June 2nd, 2008, Congress actually formally recognized BB Moore Campbell and National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So, like, she kind of helped to bring that whole month to fruition. So that's really awesome. I think she's really great. You know, stigma continues to be a challenge, but as much as we can, like, work together, chip away at it, you know, having conversations like this that we have here, open and unfiltered, and then just, you know.
Unfiltered AF.
Unfiltered AF.
UFAF. Ooh, hashtag UFAF.
UFAF. It's on. It will remember because it was recorded. Usually we're like, write that down so we don't forget. I saw you do that. You were like, where's the pen?
I'm like, my initial thought is always like, where's Mark?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's in the room.
He's right there.
He's got it.
You captured it. It's captured. We have a whole new meaning to the word captured now. It's been captured.
Hashtag insider.
Hashtag if you know, you know. And if you don't, be grateful. That's all I have to say. So yeah, shout out to BB. She was a queen and she slayed.
Okay. My pioneer I wrote down.
Oh, perfect.
Can I read my own writing? That's
To
the
be
question.
determined. TBD.
Can't.
Okay.
Good thing I have a backup.
When did you write it? At like 3 a.m.? Just roll over and like.
10 minutes before we started.
Oh, that's why.
Because I was like, I don't want to have to be scrolling through my iPad like I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who you said.
Okay, here we go. Hope Landrine.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Now I didn't want to mess up her name like you.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read it from here now because I have this open.
Okay.
Ta-da! So Dr. Hope Landrine, she was an expert in mental health, psychology, and public health.
Oh, yes.
And the reason why I wanted to highlight her is because she was one of the first people, and she's a Black woman, who was actually brought data that showed the presence of societal inequities related to mental health, and with a specialty in diagnosis and category. Here I go. Can't say certain words.
Categorization.
Categorization.
I can't say that word either.
Categorization.
Categorization. There you go. It's a hard one.
Categorization.
There you go.
Categorization.
How do you say that without sounding like
that? Like a third grader trying to sound it out by syllables?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll have to.
Maybe more podcast experience.
Maybe we should.
We do a ton of trainings. You would think that this would not be an issue for us anymore.
My jaw does feel tight. Like
what's
maybe,
the
Like if we did more of that, it might help. Okay, we can totally cut that out because I know I don't look cute at all.
It doesn't matter.
I'm doing that.
Keep it in.
Okay, fine.
Sorry, Dr. Landrine. I shouldn't have done that in the middle of your highlight. Okay, so she brought forward all this data.
Yeah.
But one of the best things that I thought that was really important about talking about her today is that she really brought forward the stereotypes related to women. And we've talked so much today about women and women's mental health and postpartum and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of times still we as women have to fight for our voices to be heard and are not recognized. You know, we've gained so much, but we also haven't in some ways. And so it's a difficult balance, and I think the men of the world don't get that.
Yeah.
So I love whenever I see somebody who is like, no, this thing about women is true.
Yeah.
So get it together. Thanks.
Yeah. Nothing like a little data. Data will tell the story every time.
I'm telling you, every time. I love it. So yes, she has done a lot of things around all of this data, and she looks at everything through a public health lens, which I also find extremely interesting, especially in this somewhat post-pandemic time. Is it post-pandemic?
Yeah, it's pretty endemic at this point.
Endemic. Let's say endemic. In this endemic time, to think about things with like a public health lens.
Yeah.
So I just think her approach to everything that she did related to mental health was really amazing, and to really push the envelope forward using like concrete data.
Yeah.
There's a debate. There's always so much debate.
Yeah.
When it comes to things related to mental health.
Yeah.
And so when
The
it's
nuance. Yeah. When we can find those stakes in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like,
And now
this
we
is a fact.
Yes. Let's map around the fact.
Yeah.
And not our opinions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also going to highlight my boy, Kanye West.
Your boy. Your boy. Can I tell you, I read this. Okay, so
Go ahead, make it positive.
Was that a directive regarding
Ka-
Kanye?
No.
You were like, don't talk shit about my man.
I'm like, yeah, kind of yes and no.
This is not even what we're talking about right now, but I just like, I go down these rabbit holes sometimes with conspiracy theories. Have you heard this theory that like there's two Kanyes and like one of them is a fake Kanye and like the real Kanye got carted off because he was like talking too much real shit, you know, like on some Illuminati type shit?
Oh, there's a lot of Illuminati everything.
I know, it's just kind of like, people are so
Black
like,
China's mom went like viral over the weekend from saying that Black China's controlled by the Illuminati.
That's a whole nother episode because I am fascinated by this. I am fascinated by the concept and everything.
Of the New World Order?
The New World Order and everything associated with it, and like clones, and like they were, you know, people had like still shots of like Kamala from the State of the Union, and they were like, that ain't Kamala. You know, they like held up two different pictures of her, and I was like, you're right, that's not Kamala.
It's so much photoshopping.
I know. It's just also very interesting. But anyway, back to your point about Kanye. Go ahead.
He's just a, you know, modern day, living out his true self, living in the world with mental health person who sometimes steps on grenades in the midst of doing that.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a really accurate and true experience of what it's like to live with mental health in the day and age of social media and celebrity, and not even that, but like the kids that we like work with them and their families, and a kid goes through a mental health challenge and they take that picture or they tweet that feeling and it becomes larger than something that they ever could have been able to control.
Yeah, it's true.
And I just think, like, you know he's very controversial and he says things that hurt people's feelings, and sometimes everybody's feelings are hurt and sometimes nobody's feelings are hurt, and it literally depends on the day.
It depends on what else is being covered in the news.
In
day.
the media cycle.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like, I just feel that has always been a go-getter and somebody who leads the way, and has been controversial like from the start, even before we really knew about any of these challenges that he had in his life. He was always controversial with the way that he did everything.
Yeah.
And so
it's kind of like his appeal too. Like, that's the thing that I, love about him, is that he pushes the boundaries and like forces you to like stop and think and like be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And we need people like that in the world. We need people like that in our lives. Otherwise we get too comfortable and complacent and we just let things go. And I think that's what I've heard from him, is his underlying message is like, you think this, but like, have you thought why lately? Like, have you thought about why you think this way, or why your opinion is the way it is? And so I appreciate him for doing that, and shaking the cage a little bit, and trying to wake people up. And you know, like you said, I think that a natural byproduct of that is that you're going to get people upset, right? Because people like to be just asleep, tucked in bed, slumbered up, you know, like in hibernation mode. You know, they want to be on autopilot.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I appreciate that about him. And then I also think that sometimes, like, it, you know, you could finesse it a little differently, you know.
And there are times
like,
that I'm legit worried about
yeah,
what's happening with him, you know?
yeah.
And I think that's also part of, like, not that I'm some, like, crazy ass fangirl, but, like, to put it, like, in the context of somebody who, like,
Oh, you be stunting for Kanye. So
Kanye.
Did you just
Speak easy.
hit on Kanye in the middle of? I can't. Also, he's a married man now. That made me worried about him. All of a sudden, he's married.
He is just showing,
Like,
Little Miss
say her name. Say her name.
Blanky
Say her
blank
name.
blank
Yeah.
that if he feels like it, he'll go get another one
Yeah.
because
I mean, there's other ways to show it.
he was just like, oh, okay.
I hope you got a prenup.
You want to look and dress like this? Here, I'll just take you to this doctor and stylist.
Doctor and stuff.
And there she is. And she wanted to be
Come
foolish.
on, Barbie, let's go party.
And he was like, turn the factory back on. I need another one. Another one.
Another one. So,
What city are we in?
where are we? What's happening? So as always, if you want to join us in our meditation, please feel free to stick around and enjoy some nice centering breath work. And if not, we want to make sure that you
Subscribe, rate, and review.
subscribe, rate, and review.
And as always, thank you to our amazing team here
They put up with us and they
in
help
the
us
booth,
make this happen.
in the studio.
Shout out to Michelle. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Mark. Mark gets shout out like every 2 seconds. We're always just like, Mark's the shit. he's like, stop shouting me out. It's enough.
And thank you to BCA for giving us this amazing space
Yeah.
to record and edit and just move on in and do
Yeah.
our thing.
Do our thing. And that's
So-
a wrap on episode 3,
Wrapped.
Baby Blues and Black History.